I want to make a quick recording that goes over intellectual property. Not just what it is, but more importantly, what it is as an investment. I'm going to cover internet intellectual property, which are basically images, files, software, programming, anything artistic, symbols, resources, things that are not tangible. As a basic example, let's take a look at iStock Photo, which is a intellectual property marketplace. In this marketplace, we're just going to take a look at some images. For example, I'm going to search for the keyword kid. As you can see, there's a lot of images of kids here. I'm going to click on one. And as you can see, this person is selling a picture that they took of their child blowing a dandelion. This picture itself is considered to be intellectual property. As you can see, they've priced it anywhere from $19 to $88 per license. So a company would come in, and if they're looking for a picture of a child, they might choose to use this one because they need the image as a high-resolution image. So you would think that paying $70 for this image is expensive, but you have to understand you might be a magazine or a ebook company, and this might be the cover. So $70 in reality is cheap compared to the cost of going out and taking the photo yourself. So what I'm saying is, in theory, with intellectual property, all you have to do is go out and take pictures and fulfill markets. Like this person went out and took this picture, and now they're making money. But what would surprise you is just how much money intellectual property makes. You have to look at this image as an investment. If you own the rights to this image, it's the same as owning a rental property or anything else. So now this particular person is selling this image for $19 to $88, and let's go down and see just how many they sold. In this case, this person has licensed 21,000 copies of this image. So let's see really just how much money they've earned. So 21,000 copies at $35 each, which would be an understatement. That means they've earned $735,000 for taking that picture. Now with that being said, I can look at what other works they're doing, the same person. And if so, I can see they're kind of diverse. Here they're doing a child one, and here's just a simple rendering. And if I look at the rendering, this is something that could be rebuilt in Photoshop in an hour, for $50. And this one, sold 9,000 copies. So another $200,000 to $500,000 in revenues. And those revenues go directly to the artist. They go directly to the person that owns this intellectual property. Now this is a really simplistic idea of intellectual property. It can become very complex as well, as I'll show you. Now, internet intellectual property works a little bit different than the real world stuff. Generally speaking, intellectual property online is used for development. Let's take this for example. This is just a simple web page. If you notice at the top, the graphical separation here is all intellectual property. These are actual images. So is this logo. So is the effect that does the backdrop on the logo. The fonts are intellectual property. This monitor is intellectual property. These are all components that have went into this that people buy in order to build this particular page. From the buttons to the banners to everything, even the way it works, even the functionality at one point is intellectual property and was purchased. And it's not just about what you see, but the way things interact. For example, these bars, when I put my mouse cursor over it, it does this little pop-up. Someone had to program that, they had to write the code, and then they sell that code as intellectual property. Here's an example of a piece of intellectual property called Thumbs Up. It's being sold on Code Canyon. The only thing this piece of intellectual property does is display a thumbs up button, and when you go and push it, it calculates and adds one to it. So people that want to put this on their website would have to purchase it. So for example, this individual wants $15 for everybody that uses it on their website, and he's sold 1,500 of them. So in essence, he's made the equivalent of a brand new car for writing code. And this particular piece of intellectual property isn't that complex. It's something that could be done within a day. So if you tried to calculate the wages of this author, they're making $500,000 a month. And these aren't complex ideas. They're not highly talented or sophisticated pieces of technology. They're very simple. And this one in particular, if someone had the idea, the complete script and all the technology could probably be built for $200. Now let's look at an example of a very complex piece of intellectual property. For this, we're going to look up a WordPress theme. Now here's the theme itself. It looks like a website, but what you're actually looking at is a website template. People would use something like this in order to build their website, and it's full of intellectual property. From the menu to where the logos are, to these sliders, the thing that actively moves these images, to the HTML code itself. There's a lot of graphical work and programming that goes into this. Something like this could take easily 2 months to build, but you have to look at the value of it. This particular one sold almost 16,000 copies at $55 each. So you're looking not tens of thousands of dollars to build one of these, but hundreds of thousands. And the total cost of something like this to build it would probably run under $5,000 in the worst case scenario. Now, taking a step back, this marketplace is called Graphic River, and the piece of intellectual property we're looking at is simply a business card. It's a business card template set up through Photoshop. Now, if you look at the business card itself that was designed, it's extremely simple. All it is a white line that comes across and a few lines of text. Something like this would take minutes to build in Photoshop. And assuming they could build this entire ad, the entire presentation within an hour, this particular one sold over 700 copies at $6 each. So they could argue that their hourly wage runs thousands upon thousands of dollars an hour. People that understand intellectual property, that know how to build intellectual property, are priceless. There's no way to hire them because they make far too much money because they understand the industry. The great thing is that most designers, most programmers, most graphic artists are not into intellectual property. They still work for $20 an hour. They don't understand what the work is worth, and because of that, you can have intellectual property built very cheaply, very quickly, and turn it into these marketplaces. Best of all, practically anyone could sell in one of these marketplaces. Graphic River, for example, you just click on the Make Money button and sign up. Some of their top authors are making $20,000 to $50,000 a month that really understand the needs of the market and can properly identify the intellectual property that needs to be built. One of the reasons I like intellectual property is because it's not like running a business. You simply upload your items, they sell, and you make a commission. You don't do any sales, you don't do any marketing. It's all very simplistic and straightforward, and that's why I like it as an investment vehicle. Another thing I love about intellectual property is the pace of the market itself. Take this item, for example. It sold 41 copies at $4,500 each, so it's made, give or take, let's say $1,500 after cost. This item was uploaded not 24 hours ago. So the very first day that they came out with this item, it practically paid for its development cost. So unlike a house or a mutual fund, you don't have to wait years and years to make your money back. Some of these items make their money back almost instantly the day it's finished. Because of that hyper return on your investment, you can buy more and more and more intellectual property and not only reap the huge returns that they provide, but you can grow extremely fast. More importantly, you can start with a very small amount of money and continue to roll it into new intellectual property and reach quite a portfolio within a short period of time, as long as you know what you're buying and as long as you know what you're developing. Now, with all that being said, you have to understand you can't just go out and take a picture and upload it and hope to make big money. You have to be able to identify markets and really understand what people are needing, what people are searching for, and where those gaps in the markets are. Without that information, you'll become a small piece of a very large market. For example, on Graphic River, you have 2.4 million marketplace members, 2.4 million developers that are buying intellectual property. And like myself, I buy intellectual property every single day for my development. Right now there's over 3 million items within that marketplace. So you're not going to be the first person to invent a buy it now button, but a lot of people are going to need that buy it now button. But whenever you can look into this marketplace and identify the items that are not currently available that people need, you're able to fill those gaps and you can make a lot of money. As a developer, I see these gaps all the time because whenever I'm building software, I run into these gaps. I search for the intellectual property and I don't find it. Because of that, while I'm doing development, I also build out these missing pieces to be intellectual property because it's going to help developers in the future and it's going to pay for the current project that I'm working on. As an investment, this is really good because there's a lot of things in the future people are going to need. It's constantly growing. 3 million items in a marketplace might seem like a lot, but in reality, it's very, very little. If we had 100 million items in a marketplace, we would still have gaps, and we would still need more and more, especially with emerging technology. The best thing about technology is that if I build a piece of intellectual property that is fundamentally sound, the sales of that intellectual property will remain constant for years and years and years. It doesn't go away because some things don't age. For example, a buy button. We're going to need buy buttons in today's world, and we're going to need a buy button 50 years from now. And as long as you have intellectual property to be sold, there's a lot of variations of it that can apply. For example, I might need a buy it now button that has a certain glossy look, and the next person might need one for more of an industrial look. And because of this, one buy it now button won't do. You need thousands. And that's why these marketplaces still have a long ways to grow. Now, looking at intellectual property from a investment side is very different. Take real estate, for example. If you bought a house for $100,000 and you put $20,000 down and you magically rented it for $1,100 a month with no problems, no bad renters, no issues, then that investment there over a 5-year period would yield you about $17,000 in profit, which is fantastic as a normal traditional investment. However, the thing you have to remember is you're still out $20,000 in cash, and 5 years later, you haven't made it back yet. You haven't actually made money necessarily. After taxes and expenses, you're only actually making about $6,000 a month. And that's if you can keep this thing rented. That's if you don't need a new roof. That's if we don't hit a housing bubble. So it's a very sensitive thing. But this is traditionally how people invest money. But if you have a home and you have $20,000 in equity that you can put towards intellectual property, then everything changes, because if it's invested properly, if you design the proper pieces in the marketplace, not only you won't have to spend $20,000, but whenever you do spend, you're going to make back in 15, 30, 45 days, and then you have positive cash flow going forward. So when you think, bank CDs and stock exchanges and all these other traditional investments, you're only going to make about 12% a year, and that's on a very good year, while you have a lot of risk and a lot of downside. So what you will find is internet intellectual property is a huge part of the future when it comes to investment portfolios, individual investments, things outside of the banking industry, because the traditional banking industry has yet to adapt to it. Even the riskier investments like buying stock, Walmart for example, a very secure stock, a very smart investment, 5 years ago was still sitting around $60 a share, and today it's only $71. So you're still making money, but you're not really putting your money to work. The new era of thinking is that money alone isn't good enough anymore. You can't just throw money at an investment and hope it yields a good return, because the financial industry hasn't caught up yet. You have to put in intellectual thought behind it. You have to be creative. You have to be within those industries like we are. And if you can do that, the return on your money is phenomenal. 20 years ago, the idea was it takes money to make money. And now the idea is you absolutely don't need money. You just need creativity and intellect. And with that, you can make more money than all the money in the world. With that being said, the next video I'm going to make, we'll go into some more detail on how to actually build and implement intellectual property, because just because it looks like a good idea, a lot of people are lost on how to actually do it. And most of us are not programmers or designers, but we're just normal people, and we don't really know how to start. So I'm going to put something together that will show you from a third party how to actually outsource to build intellectual property, where you don't need to know how to program or need to know how to take care of the techie stuff. You just have to pay and direct the right people to produce the intellectual property and simply upload it into marketplaces, because I think that's how normal individuals could really get started into this as an investment vehicle. Some of these pieces are really complex, but others are very simple, like a business card, and I think it's something everyone can do. More importantly, it's something people can start out with $200, have something built, place it into a marketplace, and watch their revenues grow. They can build some monthly, passive income, and even if that $200 piece of intellectual property, is only yielding $50 a month, it's still a great return on your money, because anyone in the world would take that offer to hand somebody $10,000 in exchange for a secure $2,000 a month income. It's a very good deal. It means within the first year of you working a job, you save your money, and you're a third of the way to retirement. But a lot of this intellectual property doesn't just yield a third a month on your money. Some of it completely makes your money back the very first day it's released, and continues to make phenomenal returns after that. Best of all, it doesn't take any time to manage, and if you wake up one day and you decide, I'm going to take 3 weeks off, you can close your laptop, walk away, and not think about any of it. When you get back, your commissions are still there. It's the perfect business. If you need any ideas on how to get started with intellectual property, you have my email, so be sure to write.